more songs, but it's a pretty special treat nonetheless. Once again, I'm Jen Traplin. I'm from Live 88.5. And you're crying up there. Are you okay?
Oh, God. Did someone hit you? You can tell us. Did Sarah give you the stink eye in the middle of the song? You don't like her? It's okay. You can still like our band, like me more. Are you okay? Yeah, it's emotional being this close to us, I know. It's how I always react when I go to see the sea lions at the zoo in Portland. I'm not joking. Every time I see the sea lions, for whatever reason, I find them majestic and spiritual, and I always start crying. It's normal. It's a normal reaction. You're sitting really close to us. Usually we have like a 12-foot rule because sometimes the 19 is so powerful that it hurts people. The 19. This is how we do this. We'll pull you back together with our humor, but while still acknowledging that your emotion is beautiful and natural. And it seems like you have someone very nice rubbing your back and holding your arm, and I don't think you're in pain. I think you're in it's a happy, joyful thing.
Very, very joyful.
Okay, good. Okay.
Well, you guys did mention in your liner notes for Sainthood that you had a lot more people to thank, but paper is too precious, so obviously you didn't. So I hope you don't mind. I agree. So my entire, all my notes are on my BlackBerry today.
Oh, awesome.
I'm not just
so you're not just
ignorant.
email.
No, I'm Twittering away as we speak. So Happy New Year, first of all.
Thank you.
And I noticed there was a rather, speaking of Twitter, a rather interesting post New Year's Day. Tegan, you said that you apparently, your New Year's resolution was that you were going to have babies, and Sarah, that you were going to get your driver's license?
Yeah, I mean, the New Year's resolutions were made around 3 in the morning, so there was a delay in my post.
By a substance.
Yeah, totally. There's this really hilarious video from that evening where I insist on hugging Sarah, like for a long time, and but she doesn't. She's so excited by the hug, she's trying to get away from me, and being drunk. Yeah, and I'm screaming over and over again, "You're my sister! You're my sister!" And people are acting like it's like 2 giraffes have just wandered into the party because our friends know like we don't touch each other ever, and so they were just all like click click click. It was like paparazzi. It was like so funny because people were just like, they're touching! Oh my god! But Sarah was trying to get away from me. But yeah, somewhere in there they asked us what our resolutions were, and Sarah said she was going to get her driver's license, and I said make babies. I'm not going to have a baby, so. But I thought it would be funny to Twitter that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really actually sticks by the resolutions.
No,
anyways, you know.
I might.
Yeah?
You can get your driver's license?
Your license?
Yeah, I mean, how else am I going to get to Julianne Moore's house with all my gear from my children? It's true. She lives in LA, right? No, New York? No, she lives in New York. New York. I know where she is. Okay, wow.
Either way, it's a bit of a drive, right? With this new album, Sainthood, you guys had Chris Walla involved, you had Howard Redekop involved, and those two worked on your previous 2 albums, so I guess it's no surprise that Sainthood sort of sounds like a perfect blend of those 2 albums. Was that kind of intentional, or is that just sort of what happens naturally when you stick, you know, all you guys in the same room?
I think, I think there's it's hard to get away from sounding like how we sound, and so whoever, you know, whatever production team we have, we always sort of have people who can help us just, you know, amplify what we do in a way that sounds really good. You know, like I don't think that, you know, if we didn't have Howard involved in Sainthood, it would be something different, but I don't know that it would have necessarily been so different that it would be a completely different record. Like, and I think what Howard brought to So Jealous is, this sounds really spiritual or like you know, like hippy dippy or whatever, but like what both Howard and Chris do with Tegan and I is sometimes it's less technical and more just like the editing process. Like as a producer for Tegan and I, we just really need people who can give a different perspective and who can, you know, help sort of like narrow down ideas or songs or, you know, or decisions or whatever. And they work so well together, and they didn't know each other before we had. Like Chris didn't know Howard, and Howard didn't know Chris until we had done both of those records, So Jealous and The Con. So it was really fun to like bring them together and see them work together. And they're very similar in some ways, and then like totally different in others. So they kind of make the perfect twin team. They're more like twins than we are. Like they can telepathically communicate, and they can you know, like divide water and like that kind of thing. Like just like magic.
And of course, the big story about this album is that it was the first time that the 2 of you actually got together. You know, there's a ton of stuff written about the fact that you guys actually got together and spent a week together, which,
Yeah.
you know, for a lot of people thinking sisters growing up, you guys have been in the business 10 plus years, that you probably do that all the time, but that's not actually the case. So, you know, obviously it worked out really well, the two of you sitting together in a room and writing together. Do you think that that'll be the formula from here on out?
Well, I think that it's definitely something we will avoid doing again. Like, I think that, you know, I mean, we wrote a song last year with Tiesto called Feel It In My Bones, and I think that was sort of like the first thing that really inspired Sarah and I, like, musically, that we had written together. We'd written a bunch of songs together in New Orleans that we were really into as well, but the Tiesto song really felt like we started to get the hang of it, you know. And there were a few other songs that we wrote for the record that are B-sides that we'll probably release eventually, that we wrote also together, that are really cool. So I think it's mainly just that the process of writing is just an independent thing, you know, and it's just kind of fun to do alone. And it's not that we don't like to do it, you know, like with each other. Like, I don't think we avoided it because we didn't want to write together because we thought we'd kill each other or something like that. Like, I think we knew that if we sat down and wrote something together, it would be cool, but we just always write alone. And so I think that now that we've written songs together, we'll probably do that again. But I think there'll always be songs on the records that we write alone. You know, that's when you can be your most vulnerable and you don't feel as self-conscious writing lyrics and that sort of thing when you're by yourself. So something safe about recording something and sending it to each other, you know, or to the management or producers or whatever. And when you're sitting in a room and you're like trying to like riff lyrics and stuff, it doesn't matter how long you've known somebody, you still feel like a nerd. So.
And the tour of Canada, it's been a couple of years since you guys toured Canada. It's wrapping up really soon, and then you're going to have a couple of weeks off before you're back in the States. You've got a lot of diehard fans all over the world, Canada especially. Aside from sort of the obvious geography of the differences in the two countries, what do you notice when you're out on the road, the difference between Canadian fans, US fans, or is there a difference?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that we generally attract a really similar kind of audience, like wherever we are in the world, and that's really comforting and it's really sweet. But there are just like social customs or socialized behavior in every city and every country that are pretty obvious. Like, Canadian audiences are super enthusiastic, but there is definitely a reservation or like a politeness that we definitely don't feel like, for example, when we're in like Manchester, England. So that's not a bad thing. You just have to sort of like get your game face on when you're going to be around like a more aggressive audience or a really drunk audience or something like that. But not to say anything, they are not. That's not a diss in Manchester. If you're like, you're so drunk, they're like, thank you. They're also. I mean,
It takes a certain level of skill.
yeah, I mean, yeah, especially when you're like 13 or 14 and it's clear that you've almost shut down the pub. But no, it's good. But in America, like the comparison between, or the difference between America and Canadian, America and Canada, difference between Americans and Canadians is certainly maybe not as noticeable. But I mean, each city is really, really different. And I think sometimes, you know, it doesn't always work out this way, but in certain cities like, you know, like Los Angeles and New York and Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver, like bands go through there a lot. Like, people are not, they're not like, what's going on? You know, like, oh my god, a concert, you know, whatever. Like, it's, but, you know, we roll through places where people don't necessarily go all the time, and you can sense the excitement is on it. Which is kind of what makes touring in places like Canada so amazing and so different for us, is that we, you know, played in Kelowna and Saskatoon, and you know, like, it's really different. Like, those audiences are awesome. Like, Saskatoon was one of our favorite shows of the tour because they don't see bands 5 nights a week, and so there's an enthusiasm, excitement, and they're not as reserved. Whereas, you know, you hit some of the major cities and they're like, we saw Muse last night, what are you going to do for us? You know what I mean? And that's good. That's a good challenge for a band like us. And it's all over the world. I mean, like, you know, everywhere we go, the audience is just slightly different. But Sarah's right, our audience, there's so many commonalities between the people that see us and like us, and that's pretty comforting.